Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Tariq Shahzad. Today we will going to discuss about Zygomycota or Zygomycetes or conjugating fungi. That is the first group of the fungi, Zygomycota, Zygomycetes or conjugating fungi. These three different names are used for a single group of fungi. So first question arises here that why we called Zygomycota. Zygomycota is named so their spores are zygospores. That's why they are named as Zygomycota. And why they are called as conjugating fungi. Conjugating fungi is due to that they reproduce sexually or asexually, and through sexual or asexual reproduction the only way to reproduce is spore formation. Their sexual spores or asexual spores. Spores produce either through sexual reproduction or through asexual reproduction involve the step like conjugation. It is not exact like the conjugation takes place in the bacteria, but it's so somewhat similarities with the conjugation of bacteria. That's why it is also known as conjugating fungi. It means that only reason to call them as conjugating fungi is that they show a similarity as conjugation that takes place in bacteria, so they are named as also conjugating fungi. This is a long question that what are conjugating fungi, or write a note on the life cycle of conjugating fungi, or write a detailed note on conjugating fungi or Zygomycetes or Zygomycota. So that one is a long question, and in long question this is only a very short theory or only diagram, but this one is a long question, so you have to attempt someone extra than your book. So first of all, he says that they are also called as conjugating fungi. This one is an MCQs, and next one is their hyphae are synocytic or non-septate. Number 2, reproduction. They show both type of reproduction. They can reproduce through sexual reproduction or they can reproduce through asexual reproduction, but either they reproduce through sexual or asexual. The similarity is that both type of reproduction takes place through the spore formation. Either they are sexual spores or they are asexual spores. So their asexual spores are called as we know that conidia, whereas their asexual spores sexual spores are known as zygospore. So asexual spores, conidia formation or through conidia, we have already learned about this in the asexual reproduction in fungi, in the topic of asexual reproduction in fungi, whereas the sexual reproduction is different in different groups. So we will only have a look on sexual reproduction in Zygomycota. So their sexual reproduction takes place with the formation of spore, and that spore is known as zygospore, and zygospore is formed by the direct fusion of the nuclei. First of all, their cytoplasm fuse, then their nuclei fuse, and whenever their nuclei fuse, that is known as karyogamy. After the plasmogamy, in karyogamy, whenever their nuclei fuse, they form a gametangia, and gametangia is a structure that produce gametes. There are different type of gametes that are being produced by the gametangia. So gametangia is gamete producing body, and two different type of gametes are produced, and the fusion of these gametes will produce zygote, and zygote will germinate to form zygospores, and zygospores will germinate to form sporangia. In sporangia, through meiosis, haploid spores are formed, and these haploid spores, whenever find a suitable land, then they can grow to form a new mycelium. That is the whole process of sexual reproduction in Zygomycota. And at last you have to draw the life cycle of the Zygomycota, and in last you have to put the heading of the example, and there are only one heading in your book, only one example in your book, but you have to write other examples from the table in previous page, that rhizopus that grow on the bread and fruits, whereas the other example is Pilobolus, that is also known as spitting fungus. Why we call it as a spitting fungus? Spitting means saliva. Whenever they are present on the ground or they are present on different substances, they look like a saliva or they look like a thuk. That's why they are known as spitting fungus, right? So first of all, reproduction. Reproduction is of two types: asexual reproduction through spore formation, and sexual reproduction is also through spore formation, whereas the asexual reproductions take place through spore formation, and these spores are known as conidia. There is an other type of spores, but conidia also formed in asexual reproduction in Zygomycota. And next one is sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, zygospore is formed. Mean through sexual reproduction, they reproduce through the formation of zygospore. And these zygospores are temporary, thick-walled, dormant, and resistant structures. And how these zygospores are formed? Nuclei of hyphae. First of all, their cytoplasm fused, that is known as plasmogamy, and their nuclei fused, that is known as karyogamy. So after karyogamy, gametangia is formed, and we already learned about that. Gametangia is a gamete producing structure. They produce gametes, and now gametangia, in gametangia zygote is found. Whenever their gametes fuse together, they will form zygote, and zygote are diploid, and these diploid zygote now form zygospore, and zygospores are diploid. Gametangia, gametes haploid, whenever they fuse, they will form zygote. Zygote is also diploid. Haploid plus haploid is equal to diploid. Diploid zygote is formed. That diploid zygote now will form zygospore, and that zygospore is diploid. And this zygospores germinate to form sporangia. And that germination is through meiosis. In sporangia, spores are formed. These spores are haploid. It means that in sporangia, meiosis takes place, and it will produce spores. These spores are haploid, and whenever these spores spread by or dispersed by wind, and they choose, or whenever they find a proper place or suitable conditions on the soil, they will germinate to form new mycelium. Then new mycelium are formed. We represented it in a cyclic form, that how they reproduce. This one is a one type of mycelium, and that one is the other type of mycelium. This we see them with different colors only to differentiate them. That red one is one type of mycelium, and green one is the other type of mycelium. So this is a one type of mycelium, and that is the other type of mycelium. Their hyphae fuse together. When their hyphae fuse together, they first of all they come close to each other. Next, they one will fuse with each other. It means that plasmogamy takes place here. And next, whenever their nuclei fuse with each other, that is why it is known as gametangia. Gametangia means their nuclei now fuse with each other. That's why the gametangia is formed. In gametangia, it will change into zygote, and zygote is diploid. Zygote is diploid, and zygote change into zygospore. Zygospore is also diploid, and zygospore germinate. It will form to sporangium singular, and sporangia many or more than one. So sporangium are formed. In sporangium, spores are formed. When these spores are haploid, formed through meiosis. Whenever these spores spread or dispersed by rupturing of sporangia, then if they find the suitable conditions on land or on different fruits, then they will germinate to form a separate mycelium. Now you can think that whenever these spores are formed, they are formed through meiosis. So in meiosis, the crossing over takes place. That's why they have the different type or different genetic combination. That's why they form more than one type of mycelium, and again the cycle will start. And at the last, you have to write the examples, give a title of example, and put rhizopus that grow on bread and fruits, whereas pilobolus, that example has been taken from the previous page table. That pilobolus is a spitting fungus. Why it look like saliva, that's why we call it as a pilobolus. And this one is an MCQ. So it is the best way to represent your answer in such a way that it will cause ease for your examiner, and that will cause maximum marks for you. Allah Hafiz.